All right. Is this mic live? Yes, it is. How's everybody doing today? Doing good? Let's just hear that clap up one more time. Yes, yes. We have a very, very awesome presentation for you guys today. Like she said, my name is Jasper Dewitt II. I'm one of your instructors here in the Media Communications Bachelor's of Science Department. And I have the pleasure to introduce one of our very own, Mr. Elbert Perez. Let's get a hand clap for Mr. Elbert Perez. Hall of Famer. He's going to talk with us today about something that I am a nerd about, designing land in the metaverse. And he is really, really knowledgeable about it. You guys are in for something really special. He also taught here with us for a year. He's also working at Unity. He has some stuff that's going to really introduce you guys to some things that's going to change the game, not just for creators like ourselves, but for a lot of people outside of our community. So without further ado, I'm going to give the stage over to Mr. Elbert Perez. Like she said, we will have questions afterwards. So tally up those questions for him, because I'm pretty sure he'll be able to answer them. So it's all yours, Elbert.
Thank you. Thank you, Jasper. All right. Welcome, guys. It's Tuesday. Are you guys feeling good? Yeah? Yeah? That's great. That's great. Are you guys ready to learn how to design land in a metaverse? Or at least learn how to do it, right? It's a very complex process, but I'm here. I've done it. It's hard, but it's fun. So let's go. And why should you care? Well, before that, let me talk about myself. So I'm a 2005 game design and development graduate. I have a 17-year career in games and interactive entertainment. Right now, I work for Unity as a senior partner engineer. So what that means is that I work with our customers in a very technical field, providing support, technical liaison, helping solve problems of our customers who use the game engine. As we all know, if you're in the game industry, it's kind of getting more and more complex to create games. There's a lot of features that we need. I'm there to help support and champion you guys, as well as you guys, right? You guys are our customers if you are using Unity. Thank you. But yeah, that's me. Also, before that, I worked on a metaverse project called Stageverse. I was the lead technical engineer there. So I helped create the client, worked on the 3D interaction parts, the architecture of how things loaded. I also designed how our map/land distribution and process worked, which was very new to me. If you ever did game development or game design, it's the same kind of randomly generating maps, figuring out the rules, and all that fun stuff. So with that in mind, let's get into some details here about how, what is typically in a metaverse, right? So there's 4 things I want to talk about. And I want to make sure that we have a good understanding of what the metaverse is. Because the issue with the metaverse is it's not really well defined at the moment, which is fine. Because that's the power of the metaverse, is it brings our imagination to the forefront, right? You think about it, you go Ready Player Me, you might think World of Warcraft, you might think Roblox, you might think Facebook. Like anything that's socially connected, we can actually say it's a metaverse, right? Or even IRL, meet space, is the metaverse, right? It's just one form of the universe we're in. And the great thing about working in a digital world, you can infinitely scale it, you can change it, you can be that person that may be hard to be in real life, right? That's why we play video games, we connect digitally, TikTok and all that stuff. So it's a very core thing, as a lot of you guys, as you kind of getting into the industry or growing up digital, right? Growing up with internet, or maybe if you're a little bit older, like me, didn't exactly have internet my whole childhood. So it was like an interesting digital divide for me. But I want to make sure that we are good with what the different concepts are in the metaverse. So Web3, let's talk about Web3 first, and then we'll talk about social, we'll talk about avatars and 3D space. So Web3, you'll hear about this a lot with Metaverse. It's kind of intertwined. And the reason why Web3 is such a popular thing to say with Metaverse is because it's that decentralization, that blockchain, letting you own your digital products, right? Because right now with Web2, when you sign up for something, you go to Gmail, Facebook, your Microsoft, your Xbox account, your PlayStation account, they own your identity, right? You log into their systems. They can ban you anytime they want for any reason. They usually won't do that because they want your money, you're a customer, but they have control over that, right? And they have control if you can move your digital items from one network to another, from Xbox to PlayStation. And there's a reason why it was like that. We needed to create these networks. But now we're kind of evolving past that, where we want something bigger. We want something interconnected. And Web3 is something that helps that happen, right? Using blockchain, where you own your NFTs, your digital identity. It's an open ledger. No one really owns it, right? Right now, it's kind of centralized in a way where some organizations own it. But the ultimate promise is that it's an open network that you can subscribe to, you can look into, and you can use that to bind together these different networks, right? So, moving along, social, right? The big part of the metaverse is social. No one really thinks of metaverse as being alone, being disconnected. The whole part of the metaverse is to be able to interact, communicate, and collaborate seamlessly across all these various platforms and applications. And the key about the metaverse is you should be able to do what you want, right? You should be able to customize yourself. You need to be able to express yourself, right? It's the ultimate form of being connected, or another layer on top of what we're usually doing right now with Instagram, TikTok, right? Those are 2D screens. We want to be social in a 3D world, how we have the real environment. And another thing too is when we had COVID, right? The social aspect kind of went away, right? If you were in school, in the workplace, you kind of felt that connection missing. You can only Zoom so much, you can only video call so much. That desire to have that spatialness, especially when you're communicating in a 3D spatial way, is very different from when a Zoom call, because you're always just one directional, only one person can talk, right? Versus when you're in a space where you can freely mingle and have different conversations and even have visual information come at you. So that's the social part of that. Next up, I think is super important for the metaverse is our avatars, right? Avatars basically represent you in the way that you want to be represented. We have a lot of things in the real life. We wear clothes, we wear hats, change our haircut, change the color of our hair. It's a little bit harder, right? You could be a furry, you could have, you could be an animal if you want, but it's still kind of bound by the physical limitations or maybe budgets, right? But with avatars and digital technology, you can be anything. You can be an elephant, you can be a butterfly, you can be a ghost, and really be able to express yourself more freely and in an easier way than what you would do in real life, and not be judged or as harshly, or it's just normal for you to not be yourself. Or you could be yourself, right? It's totally up to you. Avatar is super important, and there's a reason why. Okay, and 3D space, final 3D space, will connect the land and map that I was talking about. So when you have avatars, you have social, you have 3D environments, you need to be able to represent that, right? You need to be able to have an environment that represents what you're trying to express, right? It's not just your avatars, it's your space, right? When you have people come over to your apartment, right, dorm, whatever, or your room, you customize that so that when people come in or see it, or when you're in a Zoom call, they see who you are, what your interests are, and how you want the vibe to be, right? Same thing with the metaverse, or when we're playing games. The space is super important to set that foundational feeling that goes with the avatars and whatever things you're doing there. All right, now that we're talking about 3D space, I want to talk about the two things I want to talk about here. So there's land and there's map. All right. When I say land, what I mean by that is a virtual real estate that is powered by blockchain and Web3 through NFTs, right? What that means is, when you think about when you own land in real life, you own land because of a piece of paper, and the government agrees that you own that land, right? You could physically, I guess, put fencing there and live there, but that's not how society works, right? When you buy land, the law enforcement, the government tells you, yes, you own that, you have rights to that, you can build whatever you want. Same thing with the blockchain, metaverse, NFTs. The NFT part serves as your deed, your mortgage paper, telling the system, like, hey, this person owns that land. Now, that has to be enforced though, right? So think about NFTs as saying, hey, this identity, this wallet owns this piece of land, but the systems have to say, yes, we agree, and we will visualize that. So when you think about it in a video game, it's like buying your virtual house. The system will need to just agree that you own it, and it's basically your key and deed. So that's what I view land in this concept. Obviously, if you talk to different developers and other things, they might have a different concept, but this is my understanding and how I work with it. So the map is the visual representation of interconnected space. What that means is when you look at Google Maps, right, you look at the various relationships between each piece of land or landmark, and that relationship is super important, right? So for example, here at Full Sail, this is a nexus of learning for us, right? And if most of your student life is around Full Sail, maybe your apartment, that's kind of like you have a connection between those, and you make a mental map of that, and then everything else kind of relates to that. And everything revolves around there, and things that you think are of higher value will probably be close to Full Sail, right? Because you spend most of your time here, or maybe in your apartment. And you go to, like, let's say you go to La Granja, or you go to Perkins or McDonald's. They're super close, and they have high value for you, right? It's the same thing when you want to buy land in real life. Like a real estate agent will say location, 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 because that spatial awareness of where things are is super important, right? Because you're more likely to go to a place that's, 5-minute walk than a 15-minute drive, right? So that same thing is we're trying to recreate that in the metaverse as well, because, and that's, I would say that's the tip of the iceberg, and that's a connection between our real life, right? As we transition more into the metaverse, we're trying to undo a lot of that things that make sense in the real world and only make sense in the metaverse or the VR space or whatever you want to call it. That's really up to you guys, right? When you're designing it, as to kind of understand it, live it. But for people who have been around making games or living most of their adult life already, having that disconnect is a lot harder because we're so trained already in the real world. But if you're, say, in the metaverse trying to create new virtual worlds, having that, you don't have to do as much work to disconnect and actually form new ideas. And that's why I always say, all the kids right now that grew up on iPads or growing up in VR headsets, they will understand the world in a way that we don't, because that's to them, that is what they grew up with, and they will form ideas, create the next new generation of metaverses. So it's a very interesting space that I think we're all just trying to figure out at the moment, which is great. All right. So with the land, like I said, the land helps do the localness of it, right? You show up the map. It's like a World of Warcraft instance or a map or a party raid dungeon, whatever you want to call it. You are able to go there and interact. And like I said, a lot of these are coming from games, game concepts, right? And that's another important thing about the metaverse and designing land is it has to be a good game first, right? Because guess what? Nobody's going to go experience this thing. When you look at it, it looks like a game, right? It's like, okay, then it better have game-like ideas, it better be fun, it better be something I put 4 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours a day playing or using or expressing myself. And this picture I have here actually is one of the land that we had. You could customize. This one has a bunch of Gundams in it. You can actually connect it to Instagram. It'll pull all your Instagram images and post them on the wall, right? That's like one easy way to customize land and have it an expression. And that's another reason why the metaverse, if you guys are not familiar, it's kind of like not doing very well right now for various reasons. The Web3 blockchain, everything's kind of depressed at the moment. But with land, what's happening is like what's left right now with the Roblox, the Fortnite. They understand games and they understand customization, and they're really using that to drive their IP and their world. And with the metaverses that I would say that have failed or not achieved what they tried to do is because they did not understand that the metaverse has to work good as a game, great as a game, before you can add these things that are land, concepts of digital ownership, right? Because if nobody wants to live in a piece of land, what happens? The prices go down, right? But if someone wants to be there, like, Fortnite or Roblox, then their value go up. So that's why it's important to have these things that drive people to your experience. So how do you actually make people care about land, right? There's, I would say, 4 things that kind of help you care about it, because it's like I said, a lot of this is analogous to the real world, right? When you think about it, or in games, what drives people to games, right? What is the key motivator in making someone want to use an experience? Because you can get people in, right? You can put ads, put flashy ads, right? But as a gamer, right? We're all gamers now. Most of our lives, we play video games. Even if you say you're not a gamer, you played a video game, you're a gamer, right? You could be playing a match 3 game on your mobile phone, you're a gamer, right? And what keeps you playing games? It's fun. It's something that you enjoy, right? There's personality in it, right? What do I mean by personality? Personality is like, it has character. It's interesting. It speaks to you, right? And the same thing about land with personality is self-expression through customized spaces. So what does that mean? Like, you are able to show off your space, right? When you're proud of something, or when you have a car, right? You modify your car, you change the paint, you wrap it, you put new rims, you upgrade the engine, you're expressing yourself. Maybe you don't even race it, you just like the coolness of it, right? That's the self-expression that we all crave. With land as well, we have location. So I'll show a map here, and you'll notice that a lot of times real estate, right? They say real estate is all about, like I said, location, location, location. Billboards, right? You go outside University Boulevard, you'll see billboards there, right? By Chick-fil-A, because everyone loves Chick-fil-A. You go look up there, hey, it's Hall of Fame, right? That's information that everyone kind of looks at. It's next to a stoplight, right? So people sit there, they look at it. So that location is important, because a lot of people's attention kind of gravitates there as they wait for traffic. So the location within a map is super important for the land. So utility is pretty important as well. So a lot of metaverse spaces, they market themselves as a connected space where people can hang out, right? That's the promise. And the utility part comes with, hey, can I host a party here? Can I host 50 people, 100 people, 10 people? What can we do here? Can we play games? Can we do karaoke? Can we do Zoom calls? Can we present something, right? Like all the analog things that we do in real life, we imagine into the metaverse space. And like I said before, we're still copying the real life, right? Which is something we need to establish first, so that we can explore that and see, how do we make it better? How do we make it native to the digital world that we live in, and make it so that when you take that concept and bring it back to the real world, it doesn't make sense. That's when you know you have a digital experience you've created that is native to that platform, right? Could be metaverse, could be social. But you think about it, right? TikTok or our cell phones, right? You scroll through it, right? You flick it with your finger. It's supernatural. You can do that for hours on end, right? We've figured that out. That content works, right? But if you try to do that video game, it doesn't quite feel as right? It's like, it doesn't work. Or even with VR. I've been doing VR for almost 10 years now. And the hardest thing about VR is getting into someone's face, making them comfortable, making them feel like they're not going to fall off a stage or hit someone in the face. Or their hair. Something as easy as hair, right? Like I did my hair this morning, so I look presentable. If I put a VR headset, it's gonna bifurcate here. It's gonna look weird after that, right? Nobody likes that. Or if you're wearing makeup, or if you have glasses, you don't want to take it off. These are the things that are kind of UX driven, like user experience. And when you're doing a lot of these metaverse experiences too, like I said, the thing has to be really high quality, well thought out, made so that people want to stay there. Don't just chase the dream of the metaverse for making money. Obviously, you guys are here because you want to make something great. Hopefully not too much on the money side. It's great to have money and make money, but make sure, in order to make that money, you make a good experience. So That's where the utility comes. And when people see that, hey, this experience that you've made, you've designed, people want to go into it, the value goes up, right? It's basically commodity. Oh, wow, everyone wants to go there. Everyone wants to experience that thing that you made. And that's what raises value. And finally, when I said value, a lot of people care about land because it has value, right? It could be an investment, it appreciates, it could be revenue. So with a lot of the metaverse maps, like I said, we apply real world concepts like rent, that's why I say revenue, rent. You can rent out your space. If you create a cool space and people want to host their events there, they can rent it out from you, right? If the designer of that metaverse platform says, hey, you can rent out your space for a fee, you can do it. There's a few that do that. Or you can do a cool space and then tell them, hey, these are cool spaces here, and maybe like a Nike or a Coke says, hey, I love your spaces. Can you make one for us? We'll pay you, right? And that's where a lot of the value you can create from land by showing off, hey, this is my portfolio, right? If you're a designer, a 3D artist, maybe a musician, you can use that land to drive up the value through what you make and showing it off, right? And investment, a lot of it's speculative, right? Basically, let's say you got in early on Roblox 2.0, and everyone was kind of like, I don't know about Roblox 2.0, Roblox 1 is pretty cool. And then let's say some big artist goes and like, hey, Roblox 2 is the shit, right? And that increases the investment. Everyone tries to buy it. Now that value is there, so everyone wants to buy it. So that's how you make people care. It's not easy, right? If just saying metaverse, if you think just saying metaverse is enough, it's not, right? We've tried that. We tried that with endorsements. What ultimately happens is you need authenticity and you need something that actually provides utility. Okay, so now let's get to a little bit more deep into how do you actually buy land in the metaverse. And this is pretty high level in a sense, and not really specific to any platform, right? And this could change, could be different in a month, could be different last week, who knows, right? So first of all, you have platform selection. You can choose which metaverse choose a metaverse with land sale. What does that mean? Like if you say you go to Sandbox or you go to Decentraland, you say, hey, I want to buy land. You pick what land you want, right? And you pick that platform. You browse. So a lot of these spaces have land and location, and they'll show you a map. They'll show you what's valuable, what's around you. Like, you've heard of Snoop Dogg, right? He bought land in Sandbox, and immediately where he bought land, all the value shot up. It was something that was very analogous to real world. It's like living in Hollywood, right? You're next to the stars. There's value in there because like, oh, the cool people live here, right? Same thing with the metaverse. You can do that. Third thing you have to do is account setup. You create an account. You create a digital wallet. A lot of these metaverses have Web3 wallets or connections that kind of help. Thank you. Is it on? Yes. Okay, good. Oh, it's still doing that. Interesting. Okay, that's fine. So with Web3, no, it's still doing, made it worse. Am I crackly now? Hello. Oh, well, I mean, okay, it's not me. Okay, cool. So create account, pick a digital wallet. This is where the Web3 wallet comes in. And for guys who don't know what a Web3 wallet is, it's basically your identity in a blockchain. So you pick that, you set it up. And I would say, though, like setting up a wallet in crypto or Web3 can be challenging. But there's different ways you can do it with Coinbase, MetaMask, and all that stuff. 4, if you prepare purchase preparation, you acquire sufficient virtual currency. So that's basically what you hear with Ethereum, right? You have Ether on the Ethereum network if your blockchain is Ethereum. And the basics of a blockchain is everything you do costs some resource, right? It's the ultimate capitalist kind of system where everything costs money. There's nothing really free. You spend resources to do that. So there's that. And so once you've loaded up your wallet with your virtual currency, you bid or buy land directly, depending on where this land is. Like sometimes when you're buying land, it's an auction style, or it could be they've minted it and you're just buying land from someone else. And owner transfership is the next. Basically, the contract is put on the block, or the contract executes on the blockchain, and then the land gets transferred over. And then finally, you get to develop and customize your land. So which is kind of like the whole process there. So I'm sorry, it was a little bit boring, but that is kind of like a multi-step process. And I would say, though, that that complexity is a well-known barrier to entry to a lot of people, right? You look at this, your eyes kind of glaze over, oh my God, 7 steps, right? Whereas when you go on your phone, right, you just double tap you just tap on something, it buys it, or maybe 3 steps, right? You don't have to think about it too much. But right now, this is an issue with a lot of our metaverses. Okay, so now let's actually talk about the map design. So this one here, so I helped kind of develop this. So what you guys are seeing over here is that we created a map in Stageverse where it was a circular kind of plate. That was a design decision, right? We wanted the map to not look like a normal real-world map where things are kind of square and analogous that way, or kind of landy. So we wanted to make it look like it's digital, like a hard disk, a spinning, like a CD-ROM or DVD, and kind of represent it that way, like a stadium of sorts. And in there, we also have neighborhoods. Right. Neighborhoods are basically a collection of people, say, with land, or landowners that want to create an association or a grouping. And we had these concept neighborhoods because for us, Metaverse is inherently social, right? And when we live in a space, the neighborhood is something that matters. It's something that adds value to what you're doing. Because let's say Snoop Dogg goes to your neighborhood, guess what? All the members of that neighborhood will suddenly see their values increase. So same analogy in that sense, and we really wanted to do that. And you can see here on the right side, you have these little icons. Those are actually customizable. So this view here is actually a web view. You go to a website, and you can explore the map like you would do in Google Maps, right? You can see, hey, who owns this? What do they do? And if you own a bunch of land, you can put different icons there. You can represent it with an NFT if you want. And with that, you're able to customize it on the map level, as well as going into the actual land and changing the 3D models, changing the interaction space in that regard. All right, so how do we, I'm going to check my time. Okay. So how to generate a Metaverse map. So that map that I showed, how do we actually develop that? So most of my work actually went into the algorithms that kind of created that, which is like the geekiest part of, and actually the funnest part for me, was like, given this plot of land with 100,000 spaces, and we have an X number of people who want to buy land, and when they buy land, they want that land to be next to each other, right? And with that, they want to build neighborhoods that are all next to each other, which for anyone who's in computer science right here or software development, as you can see, it's like, oh, wow, that's a classical computer science problem. So that's kind of how I approached it and how exciting it was to me, because like when I was teaching here, I was teaching how to make a map or how do you create a map using programming. It kind of brought me back to like the basics of data structures and all that stuff. So with that in mind, how do we actually do this, right? So first we define the map layout, right? And that's why I said it comes in as a design, as a, what theme do you want? Like high level, right? What feeling do you want? You want that feeling of neighborhoods, digital, spinning, different looking, right? There's the aesthetic feel of that too. So we define what the business wants, right? Ultimately, any metaverse is a business, and land in a metaverse is an important part of that business. So the business kind of drives that map layout. How do you want to do it, and how do you want to evolve it, right? Because once you put out that map is written out into the blockchain. It doesn't morph or change. It's like you're saying, hey, this is a permanent piece of land. It's going to be here. So you want to make sure when you design this, you think not just when initially people buy the land or settle in it. It's like, how do you grow it? How do you make it so it's fun? How do you make it so that when you add more features to your metaverse, your game, your app, how does it evolve? So there's a lot of kind of crazy, like, oh my gosh, if I do this wrong, we could kind of stop development, or we could hamper future development where adding new features becomes an issue. Kind of same like in real life, right? Like you're trying to put something where it's permanent. Something that is kind of weird in the digital world because like we're so used to impermanence, right? You can save a game, you can reload a game, you mess up your SimCity map, you just start a new one. But with this has permanence, and it's kind of very different but digital at the same time. And the second part we do is, so when you're creating these maps, you usually do an auction. You try to drum up interest, right? When you do a land sale, if anyone has tried to buy land in the metaverse in the last 2 years, you try to froth up interest, say, hey, if you buy it now, you get it at a low price and you sell it at a higher price, or maybe you have some, big celebrities or personalities buying these lands to drum up interest. So you do that for a while, and then you initiate that sale, right? You assign that land to owners based on land sale rules. So what does that mean? What that means is like the neighborhood rule. If I bought, let's say, 20 pieces of land, the rule that we set up was anyone buying land will have all their land connected together, because we wanted that mechanic of being able to merge the land together to have bigger land, so it has more value. It looks bigger in the map, right? It looks more special. So those are rules and the neighborhood. And imagine this, like if you have 10,000 people, 50,000 people buying, and you have 100,000 plots of land, you have to fit that in a way that's fair, right? Because what happens is you have to do this kind of blind. You trust in the algorithm. This is when the word algorithm comes in. You have to develop an algorithm to place everyone in a fair manner that doesn't bias to one group or another. Because if you don't do that, in the nature of the metaverse and how these Web3 maps work, is that you need to be very more open than a game that's kind of created the rules and kind of hidden all those rules from you. Here, because people are putting in their real money, a lot more value, they want to know what are they going to get, what are their chances. They're going to scrape all your data. They're going to ask you all these questions. So you have to be very transparent and very, very good at that, right? So that was the scariest part for me, is like testing every single piece and making sure that your map rules are good. So once that, you verify all the land is correctly assigned with the testing and all that stuff. And then finally, you update the land NFT metadata. So the important part here is in the Web3 space or blockchain, we're dealing with land and metaverse, is that a lot of that information is just an ID, right? So I buy this NFT as an ID, and then the systems usually have a map, right? Hey, let's say ID 123 maps to plot 55, and then it's visualized on a very centralized system. So the metaverses right now actually are not fully decentralized as most people would think. The key information is on the blockchain, but the rest is typically like a game, right? You have a database, you have all these information stored in a specific spot, and you're only keeping the most important information in the blockchain. And the reason we do that is because the blockchain can only keep so much information, right? And every time you move information on the blockchain or change things, it has a cost, right? So think about it. So you're playing a game, like an RPG. If you're selling stuff to a shopkeeper, and every time you sell something to a shopkeeper, it costs money, then you're like, gonna slow down and make sure you think about it, right? Real world money, right? Anytime you interact with the game or save your state, that's not fun, right? So what we do in the metaverse systems or land systems is you pick which data you save to the blockchain and pick which ones to save in a private server. Obviously, there's other ways to do that, where it's on an IPFS server, where it's more decentralized. But it's so early that you want to be able to iterate it. And if you have to save it to the blockchain, that kind of slows everything down. So that's one way. That's the reason we do that. Say the map rule. So this image I have up here is one of the testing things I've done. This is a huge map. We had all the test data. It took literally hundreds of hours to make sure the algorithm that I developed and we tested gets placed many times over. I've done thousands of iterations of the map to make sure that things are placed correctly. And there's various things that come into mind. The aesthetics, right? When you do placement, does the placement look spaghetti-like? Does it look blobby? Does it look pleasing? And I have to ask, our design team, our everyone else, like, is this the vision that we want for the map? And then you gather feedback and you change the algorithm. And the fun part about this is, like, you change one thing in the algorithm, the whole map just changes completely, right? Because a lot of the rules get set and they're all random, and you have to test that. So it's kind of like, it's a fun, you kind of feel like a little, like you own this little world and you're putting things together, but you can't place them directly, right? Because that's not fair. You place them through an algorithm and everyone goes to the same algorithm. The chances are higher of you getting good land is if you're closer to the middle. If you can see here, it's circular, right? And usually people are drawn to that middle, right? They want to be closest to the center where the universe is. And that's, for us, is what we think would have driven the value for the inside map, especially if you're trying to get onto the first lottery. It's a lottery system, right? So you can't pick, hey, I want to buy inside. You can't on the first run. You say, I'm going to buy 50 pieces of land, and you just hope that you get placed in the middle, right? So that's where the lottery part comes in. Now, once you've done that initial lottery and assign land, you can now trade the land. So let's say you lucked out, you had 50 of your land in the middle, and you can go to the open market, like OpenSea, and say, hey, I have these pieces of land I want to sell you, or I want to put it up for auction, and you can set a reserve, and people can bid or not bid. And that's how you can kind of do the investment part. As you can see, that there's a lot of money in there. It's kind of like gambling in a sense, but it's not really regulated. But you want to keep it fair so that people will trust your system. Because right now it's a matter of trust and all that stuff, and having that is super important. Especially in the world of NFTs, Web3, there's been a lot of scams, a lot of investigations by the government. It's a very hot topic for a lot of people, and that's why you need to be fair and have a lot of testing and be open, right? So these are some of the earlier maps that we've kind of done with real world data. And we even had some of these, the square blocks are like reserved spaces. So that's another thing too, is like when you're doing those special placements like that, the reserved places, like for a mall or for a big Nike partnership or whatever big company you want to do, you have to be transparent to that, to the community, right? And that's another thing too, with the metaverse, it's usually run through Discord servers, and you put a lot of the information there. It's like a treasure hunt of trying to figure out all that information. And that all kind of ties together there. So testing the map is super important for that reason. All right, so what does this actually all mean? I feel like I've talked a lot about generating this map, but what does it actually mean on a bigger, grander scale? Generating a map is a big challenge, right? And when we say metaverse, multiverse, whatever, it's like you can infinitely think, man, that's a lot of land. I have these ideas, but if it takes me more than an hour or two to put these ideas into use, you might just not do it, right? Maybe for us, like, we're creators, we're driven. We want to make good stuff, right? We want to take our vision and drive it to completion, right? That's why we're in this school. But a lot of our customers maybe don't have that drive. Maybe they're more casual. I just want to try this out. I want to make something cool, right? If you're trying to get more customers to buy into Metaverse, into the land, you need to make it easy, right? And there's two things you can do for that, right? One is developer-made map, is what I talked about, right? You as a developer, you create the land, you curate that land for them, right? You create that map. And it's good, right? Because a lot of these experiences need to be made by someone who's thought about it, knows the system, creates something spectacular, right? And number two is user-generated content. And this is the biggest thing about the metaverse, is user-generated content. For the longest time, games are curated experiences by game developers to your audiences. But now, as we are more socially connected, games like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, they live off user-generated content, right? That's what drives these experiences, these metaverses, into successful places in the industry, right? Like, you can't really find a metaverse that does not support user-generated content, because you make it easy for you as a platform. Like, you become a platform that you let your users, your thousands, millions of users, generate content. And it's the same thing that you learn in school, the network effect, right? The more socially connected people are, the higher the quality of the content, the more people come in, and you just kind of keep snowballing that. So that's why user-generated content is super duper important. So how do we do that? We use AI. I think you guys will hear a lot about AI this year, maybe into the next. But one thing that's really changed how we do a lot of the things that we do is AI, right? When I started doing that map, the AI generators like ChatGPT, it wasn't even talked about. Like, I knew about it, right? But there was no easy way to do that. Like, right now, I can ask ChatGPT to write me some Unity code. I can take a look at it and put it into the app, and it's production ready. Well, I have to tweak a little bit of it, but because of that, I was able to use it as a tool to speed up the development process, right? And when you extrapolate that AI development from just creating AI as a developer, as you as a game creator, you give that to your users, right? You make it easy for users to create their experience, kind of like the holodeck, right? You basically just tell them, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, and it just shows up, right? That's the next level, and we're getting there so fast. Like, you guys don't believe how fast, I don't know if you guys understand how fast things are going, but it's going crazy. 2 minutes, okay. So, with that being said, map generation, anyone who's tried to make a map in any of these tools, it's hard, right? A lot of times you start off with someone who made a map, maybe you modify it, or you look at some inspiration, right? With map generation, you can just prompt it. You can just ask the AI to make it, or you can give it an image, it creates a map. So that's one way. Another important thing is map validation. You need AI to tell you, hey, this map has all these issues. People can fall through here. People get stuck here. So AI can drive that testing for you, because that's another thing about creating interactive content is like your idea of what the golden path is or what that generation of the map is one way, but your users will always find a different way to break it, right? We love breaking games. That's the first thing we do when we play a game. It's like, how do I break this game? How do I fall off the map? How do I go through a wall, right? You want to prevent users from doing that by using AI testing and all that stuff. And third, map marketing, right? Anyone here use Midjourney or play with Midjourney? Ish, yeah? Okay. So a lot of people are using Midjourney, right, to generate assets. You use ChatGPT to write blog posts, to market your maps. So you can use the same thing to generate a description of your map, right? You might something as simple as writing a paragraph can be the most most vexing thing to do. I'm a creative. I don't write words. But you can use AI to push this into something that helps you write a framework for the words that you're trying to describe of your map. And to kind of pull this all together, I want to make sure that you guys embrace AI, right? Embrace it as a tool, but understand that your understanding of systems, of good art, what's good programming, is still super important, because AI will give you things that you think is good, but if you don't understand why it's making it good or what's wrong with it, then you're just gonna keep compounding that issue. Your job is to be like an art director, to be the code lead, right? To make sure that the AI is like your little minion to help you produce your art for you. Not completely, right? Because it's your vision and this is your assistant. So that's what I'm gonna say about AI and how it helps us with a lot of this development process. And with that, thank you. And if you guys didn't notice, a lot of that art I did looks pretty AI generated, right? So I was using Stable Diffusion and a lot of different models to produce that specific artwork style. I even used this Grogu on a robot thing, because the Mandalorian episode from a week ago had him in a robot. But I had this picture in my living room before they even knew that was going to happen. But I kind of wanted a red one because I wanted it to be a Praetorian Guard. A little bit geeky there. But I used AI to kind of see that vision through. And none of these would have been easy to make if I didn't have that as a tool. So that's kind of one of the side things I wanted to make a good impression about, is like AI is a tool that help you be better, but I still needed to be versed in what I'm talking about. I'm just using AI to accelerate it.
Okay. Let's give a round of applause for Mr. Elbert Perez there. Well, that was a lot. That was really a lot. We have time for a couple questions. We're really quick on time. So is there anybody that has any questions? Yeah, right here. Okay, we got a question over here. Here I come. I'm coming.
Hi, thanks so much. That was so awesome. Just beginning to understand any of these worlds, so it's really cool. My question is there anything stopping basically there being unlimited virtual land?
So a lot of that will be the systems. So the platform. We actually had that long conversation. Do we do limited land or unlimited land? I think it really depends on your business model rather than the technical use case. So technically, you can go infinitely scale. Well, obviously, there's computer limits on how much storage you have, but technically, it would be infinite. But it's really a business decision of what are you trying to do? Are you trying to make land accessible for everyone? Are you trying to create scarcity to increase value? So that's kind of what drives that.
But basically, in our human universe world, right, our physical world, it's anybody can create a metaverse, and the potential for land and anyone to create a metaverse is unlimited, right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we have a question over there. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so why the focus on land when, I was just thinking maybe you could like focus on like memory or like the amount of space you could take up in total, like out of like content or stuff.
I think that was just an interesting topic to talk about. It's something I kind of worked about if I was going to be cool. I mean, obviously, talking about the metaverse is like talking about game development. We can talk about like making game engines. We can talk about technical art. We can talk about all kinds of things. I just decided to pick that subject.
Oh, sorry. Like selling the land is kind of like the main focus for the metaverse. I was wondering if there is a focus on trying to sell, like, I guess, the ability to have a part of it, but not like in a specific zone or.
I see. It really depends. Like a lot of this is driven by what the organization or the business is trying to do. It's just design decisions at that point. And a lot of this exploratory. Like you can kind of see what other people are doing and put your own spin on it, or you can be like, hey, I want to do it some other way. It's so young and there's not a lot of data that you have to kind of try it out. And a lot of times when you try things out, they fail. And that's kind of like the trade-off on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We got one more question right there. Might as well give it to him, and that'll be the last one for today.
Wow, I just totally blanked. Sorry. I was wondering, so when you buy land in the real world, let's just call it the real world just for simplicity, you get a deed, as you said. You get like this piece of paper that documents that you own it. Those are harder to, like, I can't steal that from somebody, right? But in this blockchain technology, there is a possibility that somebody can come in and steal my digital wallet. And is there like safeguards that are being put in place to kind of, like, you can steal the document in the real world, but my signature is still on it, so it's still my land. Is there anything in this blockchain technology that's going to kind of safeguard your investment in that way? Or is it kind of like you're out of luck if somebody decides to come along and just...
Yeah. Well, I think at the base level, right, when you're talking about blockchain, not your keys, not your tokens, right, that is like the raw thing. If someone stole your wallet, your keys, you're done, right? Same thing, but there's other systems you can build on top where you don't own it. Someone else is the custodial kind of guarantor, like a government or organization that keeps it safe or maybe even insures it so that people can't just steal it from you. But that kind of goes against the ethos of the blockchain where you own everything and you are your own IT department. You are responsible for everything. Some people like that, but I think most people don't like that because we lose things all the time and we need help.
The average consumer isn't going to be like that knowledgeable about how to prevent their stuff from being stolen. So you have the average consumer who's really going to be at risk in this environment.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, we can talk about this for the next 10 hours on UX and blockchain and how that's the biggest kind of blocker from getting people to adopt it more. Because even for me, when I first started learning about blockchain and Web3 in general, it was a steep learning curve. I'm like, what am I doing here? All these terms, it's scary. And then all these warnings, like if you mess up, you lose potentially all your investment, right?
Right.
Versus like if you're investing in land or stocks, there's rules and laws, and it's well documented. It's been going on forever, right? So,
Yeah.
And just to quickly add, because I know we're on time, there are some companies that has protocols that are in place for your security. So if you were to create a wallet on crypto.com, one of their security protocols is having 20 keyword phrases that you have to save. Only you get those keyword phrases. If you lose those keyword phrases, no access to your wallet, you're done. So something to think about with centralized is the laws in place to protect you. A lot of blockchain developers, and you could probably add, has protocols in place to protect you. So those are some things that are there. Once again, let's give a hand clap for Mr. Elbert Perez. We ran out of time. By all means, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them. Definitely thank you guys for coming, and we will give it back to the floor people, and that will wrap it all up.